And
Oh, it's not
tonight,
live. Oh, there you go.
Everybody, I'm doing well.
we live. We live.
Thank
I think
God,
we're
doing
live.
well.
We are live,
So, Dr. Hudson, don't
absolutely.
say nothing crazy. We live.
I know. That's
That's
funny.
my buddy. I can mess with him like that.
You
Every
see, I get warnings even when I'm a guest.
Me too. It's the same. I call my kids and I call my friends and said, "Okay, you're on speaker, so watch what you say."
And you got to give them that warning, right?
I
Like you
get
in
it. I get a disclaimer.
right? You know how you in the car and you answer the phone, and other people in the car. I'm like, my mom's in the car with me. Watch
Just so
what
you
you
know,
say.
you on speaker.
Let's just be careful, okay? I'm putting it out there.
You gotta call the roll. Yes, you do. You gotta call the roll.
Oh, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Really
Always
good.
a pleasure to meet with you guys in this format. As you are coming in, if you would do us a favor, show us some love and click like and share.
Like, share.
Like, share. Let
And
your
whatever.
mama and them know. Let Bookie and them know.
Bookie.
Let
Oh,
everybody,
not
let everybody
Bookie.
know.
Oh,
Bookie
oh,
and them, Uncle Bobo.
Okay,
We're
it's
gonna
gonna
talk
be that.
about some good stuff tonight.
Gonna be that kind of night. Call Uncle Bookie.
Call Bookie.
Call Uncle Boogie, right? Auntie, whoever she is.
Uncle Bookie, whoever she is.
Oh God. As you-
Hi, Tisha. Hi, mommy.
Mommy's like, hi, Mama McBride. As you are logging on, as you see in the chat, let us know where you're logging in from. And
Man.
as we move forward in this topic or on this topic, share your questions with us, and we will do our best to answer them.
Absolutely.
So we're going to get started in a minute. Tonight we're talking about the power of a father's love, daddy hunger. Man, when I was reading over the notes, y'all, I was like, that's why I do. That's why. That's why. I started seeing myself. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not that crazy after all. Now it's making sense.
Yeah.
A lot of things are starting to make sense. So real talk, we're going to talk about some things tonight that's going to make you think.
Yep.
That's going to make you reflect. We want to assure you that we are not promoting a victim's mentality because we're all full grown now. So as we find ourselves in the discussion tonight, we want to be careful that yes, we understand why we do some of the things we do, but at our age, we are old enough and mature enough. And most importantly, we have the Holy Spirit with us to allow us to make a difference, to make a change. Okay. So I wanted to put that out there because we're all responsible for our healing. God can heal anything as long as we confront it and acknowledge it.
Amen.
So I just wanted to start. I wanted to start with that. So as you're coming in again, let us know where you're calling in from or where you're logging in from. We're going to talk tonight about the power of a father's love, daddy hunger. And I'm going to introduce the panelists. Ladies first, we have up top, not Deaconess, but Deacon. Y'all get it right.
Put some respect on that name. She earned it.
Put some respect on that name. Deacon Andrea LeBeau.
Everybody.
And then we have Reverend Dr. Tiffany Smith. She is a licensed counselor. I love her mind. She has her own practice. And then we have my friend and my buddy, where everybody on here is my friend, Dr. Reginald Hudson. He is one of our harvest pastors, and he is from New York, New Rochelle, New York. And it is a pleasure to have everybody, all of us together again. Of course, those of you that had been followers of the panel, we are here every second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. So you can mark your calendars. We're here with a different topic, sometimes different panelists, but we're always here talking about something that we hope is going to help you as you journey through your discipleship in Christ. Hi, Mommy. I feel my help coming now.
Hey, Mom.
Such a mama's girl. Hi, Mommy.
Hey, Mom. How you doing?
Right. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So, power of a father's love. We know from research and we know from our own experience that a father's love, a relationship with our father, can play a very key role in our development. Psychologically, emotionally, straight across the board. And I said before we got on, I don't know if we were live yet, that I was able to identify myself and what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to talk about some good stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so research shows that when a daughter, and we're saying daughter, but we're going to talk about the men too, of course.
Mhm.
But when a daughter, a female, has a good relationship with her father, she has a better self-esteem, she's more self-assured, and she has more self-confidence.
Mhm.
And I think some of us can look back in our relationships with our father. And let me say this, some of us have had, all of us have fathers, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Some of us have had good relationships with our father, and some of us have had fathers. My father's deceased. Some of us have had and do have fathers that may be physically here, but emotionally unavailable.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever side of the track you find yourself on tonight, we believe that this topic is going to help us all to identify some things. And I said earlier, as we are able to identify where we are and we confront those things and we confess those things, God is able to help us. Now, it sounds kind of crazy to confess those things because God knows everything, right?
Mhm.
But the reason why he wants us to confess those things is because it does something for us to acknowledge out loud where we are in our life.
Mhm.
So let's just jump right in. Okay. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why our father-daughter relationship is so important. And one of those reasons, and you guys can jump in, is a father's love, a relationship with a father, is good for their daughter's self-esteem.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Dr. Tiffany, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, golly.
So let's say it now.
We already got a clue that Tiffany. I see Sister McBride said Tiffany is
I
truly
know.
a daddy's girl. Don't you?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mama McBride. So we're going to lean on her a lot tonight.
I am a true daddy's girl to the core.
Wow.
I'm a
Wow.
true daddy's girl. And I think it's impossible to like start talking about those relationships and how self-esteem and securities are fostered from father-daughter relationships without talking about attachment, right?
Okay. Let's start
And
there.
so one of the famous theorists that we learned about in psychology was John Bowlby, who talked about attachment theory, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to keep it quite simple, significant attachments earlier in life are key to survival. It's how any creature born finds, you know, their survival. They lean on their parents for safety, for security. And when things are good in that aspect early in life, it's how children, they learn that if I cry, my parents are going to come and feed me. If I cry, they're going to come and pick me up. And when those basic needs are not met, then we go from secure attachment to insecure attachment.
Mm.
So finding secure attachment happens early on. Okay. So like my dad is like the best thing ever. And it's like as early as I can remember, some of my earliest memories are like me dancing on his feet and him sitting on his
Oh,
lap and him feeding me
yeah.
applesauce. And like I remember like crying and falling and my dad picking me up and putting me over his shoulder or like scooping me up. And so those things help build security and self-esteem. When you fall, you feel like you have a safe place to land. And
Mhm.
I think it's important for young boys and young girls to have that relationship. And we should also talk about what happens when you don't have that. What happens
Yes.
if I am so comfortable with a relationship with my dad, and then I get into a relationship with someone who curses me out and
Mhm.
disrespects me, and what that does for self-esteem when it doesn't reflect what you're used to.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have conversations about what happens if you don't have that secure attachment.
Okay.
What happens if you grow up and your dad was abusive,
Mhm.
or you have trauma around the relationship with your dad, and how that hurts your self-esteem and your confidence, which I think Pastor Val, we're going to get to shortly too, about
Mhm.
the dangers that can cause a
Mhm.
young girl as it
Yeah.
Mhm.
relates to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Deacon LeBeau.
Yeah, I have many things going through my head. I think the first thing that went through my head is when you introduced this topic and when you said you could have a father who is, I guess, emotionally distant.
Mhm.
And what triggered for me, you could have a parent or a father in the home who's emotionally distant but physically present,
Mhm. Mhm.
and may not know how to make that connection. And that's what I think Reverend T is talking about, is the importance of making that connection. You know,
Mhm.
I look at this in two different ways: as a daughter, but also as, you know, look at my husband parent my
Right.
children.
Mhm.
You know, my father is now is deceased, but I was truly the apple of his eye. I can own it now.
Okay.
I can, because probably I think I was more like him than anybody else in the family. So we just got along okay, and I didn't appreciate it then until I got older.
Mhm.
But what I see my husband has done, particularly with both my children, but particularly with Maya, like he would take her out on daddy daughter dates at 5, you know, and his thing was, I want her to understand that if I treat her this way, don't
Mhm.
expect anything less from anybody else. So he
Mhm.
became her first model for a
Mhm.
relationship. And
Same.
of her
Okay.
first model. And, you know, she was 5, and, you know, I put a little dress on and patent leather shoes and so forth. He put a suit on and say, okay, where you want to go? I want to go to Taco Bell. Okay. So they would sit in Taco Bell all dressed up, but and they still do that. Even it's cute even now at 30, they still do daddy daughter dates.
That's
Oh,
sweet.
She went on better dates than I did. Don't get me wrong. But
Okay, Maya.
but just to echo what Reverend T says, it is that early development, that early assurance that we get from our parents, particularly from our fathers, that validates us to let us know who we are, and that we don't have to seek that validation outside of the house. You know, when our parents, particularly our dads, when they love us, I don't have to impress anybody because I already have the unconditional love of a parent, of my father. So I will echo
Okay.
that. Hmm.
All right. Dr. Hudson, what do you have to add to that point
Woo!
as the resident father on the call, on the
Yes.
Yeah,
panel?
father and grandfather,
Mhm.
granddaughter, daughter,
Okay.
son, the whole 9 yards. First thing is, one thing that I had to really understand early, and I was a parent. Let's see, I think I was 25 and Reggie was born, something like that, and then Alexis came. No one's born a parent.
Mm.
Okay, I mean, as much as we can get advice, and we do get good advice, certainly from the spiritual realm, whether we look at books or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
It is a on the job type of training. Now, one of the things that I remember is we went through a few generations of just all boys in our lineage.
Mm.
My brother had a daughter, broke that cycle. I had a son, then a daughter.
Mhm.
So the unique thing about my being a parent to Alexis is I had to play catch up.
Mm.
Okay, I'm be a little transparent here because being in ministry, I think I might have shared this last time, and pastoring and trying to, dot everything, cross every T, be that paramecium, so to speak. You were in a sense helping to secure and fix everybody else.
Mhm.
Then by the time you get home, you're so. But we started to develop that relationship over and over as she got to be a teenager, and Alexa's personality is more like mine, although I think the next generation takes it a notch higher. And she's very true to her feelings. And the funniest story, because Pastor Val, you were talking about it, about the father providing some sort of security, that sense of security that if dad's around, it's going to be okay. I remember that when she
Mhm.
was small, some things would happen, and then come sit on the lap. But I remember one in particular when she was in college. She graduated Spelman, and she did a lot on campus with the Morehouse back and forth. And she's a practical joker.
Where did
Okay,
she get that from?
I don't know. Probably a brother. So one day I'm in a meeting and she calls, Dad. So, hey, Lex, what's the matter? This guy, he just keeps following me. He, just go away.
Wow. Wow.
I said, who is he? This and that. She said, Well, she knew his names. I said, well, can you put him on the phone? Yeah, my father wants to speak to you. And he gets on the phone. He says, hello. And all I say was, I don't know who you are. I'm not sure what you're doing. But I want you to understand just 2 to 3 things. One, I always keep the flight schedule from New York to Atlanta. But till I get there, I got people occupying till I come. All I got is a couple of phone calls. And, you know, you won't have to worry about walking behind anybody. So if I were you, I would just scat. He took off running.
Oh, wow.
Alexia says, Dad, what did you say? I said, you said he was, I was only joking. That's my friend.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, the guy she was dating. She just playing, but you know, and I shook the poor guy up so much. So finally, when I went down there, you know, took them all out to dinner and stuff like that. And I said, girl, don't play like that.
Yeah.
But it's just that reassurance. Because I always tell, you know, my children, especially my daughter, I'm never too far away to get to you. If I can't get to you, I got somebody who can get to you till I can get there.
Right.
So, you know, just a kind of a reassurance things, because I think, you know, especially young ladies and girls and teens now, they're living in a world that's so far different from what we came up in. I mean, we might think, you know, we had challenges, but now, you know, my heart is looking at my granddaughter Ryan, when she has to grow up, and she'll be 3 in August.
Wow.
Yeah, so
it's a lot.
So for people, women, girls that did not have that attachment, did not have that person to protect them, did not have that person to look out for them, what kind of negative effect would you say that had on them, even as full-grown adults?
I like my mom said, parents and children are born the same day, right? And
Wow.
that's so true.
Wow, that is so true. And Dr. Tiffany, you know, I call her Dr. Y'all.
Please.
Right.
I think that's important to note, because I think as children, and then even if you're not careful, it spills over into adulthood. You expect your parent to be perfect, right? We expect our parents. How could they do that? They're my parent. Or how could they not do that? They're my parent. Something Bishop taught me early on when I first got saved. He said you have to look at your parents like
As
they're people first.
Absolutely.
Right? So a lot of times, if you look at the shortcomings of your parent, and then you trace it back, you'll see that the grandparents had some shortcomings that kind of trickled down. So we do have to have a little grace with our parents if we did not have a good, what we call a good father, because they're people first. But the reality is that did affect us in some kind of way. Some of us did not grow up feeling like we had that protector, right? Feeling like we had that attachment. And I see, you know, young girls that I mentor now, I'm amazed at how little things like if they're dating someone and the person they're dating has their car and they're on the bus. Or the person they're dating, they always make their way to them, but that person never comes to them. Little things like you're walking down the street and they don't put you on the inside of the street. I mean, little things like that. This generation, you know, because of what we're talking about, doesn't even know the difference. So how would you say we help to teach those that didn't have that example of a good father? How would we teach them that, hey, this is what you're looking for? Because the reality is, until we break that cycle, we're going to continue to date our father.
Well,
and what I mean by that is Johnny and Bobo and Raheem, they all different people, but they're your father. So I think we will continually pursue the strong silent type, or, you know, the ones that you're always saving, until we break that cycle. So 2 questions. How do we identify that for women, young girls that we have influence over? And how would you guide them into knowing that there's a better way that you should be treated as a female?
I think first of all, to go back to what you said, I always like to share chivalry is not dead; it's on hold.
Mm.
Okay,
Mhm.
and we had an experience a few weeks back after church where a few of us that stayed behind were leaving out together. So, adults, young adults, different generations, that sort of thing. And they were going out the door, and one of our young adult um, ladies was behind one of the young adult men that walked out. And so she stopped for me to walk out, but I stepped behind her and held the door open.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, right then, right, she said, now that's the difference between the two generations.
Mhm.
Mm.
My generation, they just walk out in front of you. Your generation, they still hold doors. Now, I will tell you though, holding a door can get you reprimanded. It is. I had it happen at the airport.
Yeah, I was going to say that
They
too.
say, well, I can do it myself. Hey, okay, listen, I'm just holding the door. So you got
Yeah.
10 pounds of luggage going in there,
Yeah.
22 pounds, But
Mhm.
I think that's the first area of reassurance. And then I think the second thing to let them know um, is the fact that they can be them a lot longer than they can be anybody else. Because the pressure of life now, especially for women, you have to look this way. You have to, you have to wake up a 9. You know what I'm saying? And this acceptance, if they don't get it from a loving family, mother, father, whatever the case may be, but say where a father has a voice, because that voice of fathers and it's systematic why they're trying to separate so many fathers, especially in African American communities. That's not by coincidence. That's a fact.
Mhm.
And because it's something about that voice that reassures, something about that voice that lets you know um, what you need to do. But as you said earlier, we we are also victims of what we didn't have.
Mhm.
You know, I,
Mm.
I know my parents loved me, but they were not huggy
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
people. But I
Mhm.
know they loved me. So I had to learn some things,
Mhm.
um, looking at others.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had
Mhm.
to learn some things by just asking, the Lord, because as you go through different stages, especially when your daughter gets into that stage and dating and stuff like that, it changes. You counsel them under your roof. When they get out from under your roof, you begin to coach them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so you have to know how to do that without and encourage them. I always told my daughter and my son, I said, listen, you can you need to be. You got a mind, a creative mind. You can be an entrepreneur. And I think I said last time, they both started their businesses when they were 15 and 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, my daughter was in Black Enterprise twice for interior decorating at 15. So it's just that esteem
Yeah.
that you put into them. And then whatever they get on the outside, if you pour more in than what they get on the outside, it shapes a foundation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think also for girls too is especially, but I know this happens for sons and daughters, is when you don't have that bond, especially with your dad.
Hmm.
Excuse me, it's like you get fixated at that age of development, right? Where you don't feel validated, you don't feel emotionally safe, you don't feel protected. It impacts your social development. And then
Mhm.
you get into relationships with people, you act out of that, right? You
Mhm.
act out
Mhm.
of validation and the need for acceptance and love. And it's like you're always chasing to prove that you deserve to be loved. And you start looking for it in people that remind you of the person who wasn't able
Exactly.
to give that.
Exactly.
And we're constantly chasing that. Like, my dad didn't love me, so you go with emotionally unavailable people trying to prove your self-worth.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive. And I think part of the move forward is to recognize and acknowledge this was a faulty person.
Yep.
Either
Right.
they didn't give you what you needed or they
Yeah.
couldn't.
Yeah.
But
Right.
living your life based on what they either couldn't or wouldn't do
Yeah.
is unproductive.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Right.
let's acknowledge it so that we can move forward.
Hmm.
Yes, a lot of it can be traumatic.
Mhm.
Well, I think we perpetuate some of those patterns and live it out by playing the recorder over and over again,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy,
Yep.
I'm not worthy. And it's just like something that we keep saying and living out because we never had that bond of
Mhm.
attachment that was secure. And it could be really dangerous if we don't work through that in a productive way. And I think that it's some of the dads that have, the trauma and it's passed down,
And that's
right?
the thing. Some of it is passed down. So to trace it back is like, okay, well, he's this way because his father was his way.
Right. And violent, or a drug user, or abusive, or emotionally unavailable, or negligent. And, we start passing down these dysfunctional dynamics to our children instead of working through them. And I think it's always the child behind that generation that suffers for it, because it's passed down, it's trickling down. And and because these individuals at the top did not have the tools to help us through that and navigate it, it keeps reinforcing unhealthy dynamic.
Right.
As you're talking to me, I had so many thoughts going. I'm trying to keep up with all my thoughts.
I know, right?
But I think that to address, I guess part of the first part of the question was, how do we teach our young women, our young ladies to move through this? And I think it starts with conversation. And like when you say mentoring, it starts with having a real conversation. And in that conversation, move towards self-awareness. And an understanding, first of all, of who they are and who we are, and helping them then and helping us all move towards, okay, this is how we got this way. And then that moves to forgiveness, because you don't want to hold that bitterness. You don't want to hold that, because that will impede your growth. And one of the things that I think happens is that A, we don't talk about it enough, and B, I think a lot of our young people, male and female, don't have a clear picture of self-awareness of who they are and
absolutely
who they've been created to be. And if the father or parent is not there to validate them, then I believe it becomes our responsibility to help validate them in any way that we can, and tell them that you're wonderful, you're smart, you're intelligent. The sky's the limit. You can do anything. God models that for us. He doesn't put limits on us. And because of life circumstances and family dynamics, our children grow up sometimes with these limits. And it may take one word, it may take one person to say, you know what, you can do it. You can do it. And so I said, just to go back, it starts with conversation. It starts with reassurance. It starts with reality of, okay, this is where it is and it sucks. We get it.
Right.
But how do we move past this?
I totally, yes. Where there's a breakdown is something that you said, Deacon LeBoux, is when we let bitterness fester. So when someone says something to reinforce that you're okay, you can get past this, and we purposefully and willfully say no because my dad didn't validate me, no because this person wasn't there, and we can't accept it and receive it, then it's like, then we are kind of reinforcing our own dysfunctions. Like sometimes when I have clients who speak that way, I kind of have to confront them and say, why are you so in love with this dysfunctional thinking pattern? And they're just like, because, my dad, I'm like, I know that, right? But you are like in love and infatuated with this need to be disapproved of.
You know what I think it is, Reverend Tip, though? I think it stems from basic fear of rejection.
Yes.
My dad didn't accept me, so nobody's going to accept me. And then, Deacon LeBoux, something you said self-aware. Okay, so on the one hand, we need to be self-aware of who God created us to be. That's wonderful. On the natural side, we need to be self-aware of who we are and how we show up in the world.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't even know that I think all of us are naturally self-protective, but sometimes we don't even know that we're so self-protected that when somebody says, what's on your mind, that feels like an invasion of privacy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if you didn't grow up with a father that took the time to say, hey, how are you today? What happened today? What's on your mind? You think my feelings belong to me and I don't share them with anybody. And then when you grow up and get in relationships and your mate is like, well, how come you never communicate? What do you mean? I communicate. It takes self-awareness to know, no, you don't talk because you're not used to expressing yourself because your father didn't create that kind of environment for you. So I think it takes work and it takes maturity, but we have to be honest
and self-aware. Yep.
and self-aware of where we are right now in the equation.
Yeah.
And no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It can't be that lack of willingness to do
Right.
that. And I think that's where we have this block, is we're so caught in like the trauma of not having that relationship that, like you said, we discard anything positive and lack the self-awareness. And when someone points it out, no, this is dysfunctional,
Right.
you know, or stuck, and they're just like, well, you know, like I'm afraid somebody's gonna disappoint me. I don't like people, things like that.
Right. I'm not a people person.
I'm not a person.
Yep.
I'm just guarded. I don't let people in my business, and
Right.
you know, and then there are times when you could catch people saying like, I know I don't make the right choices. I know I do, and you're like,
there you go.
You know,
right.
You know that, but then when someone gives you instruction, it's like, it's too much, right? It's too much. And I think, yes, Reverend Prescott, we have to acknowledge it, accept your history, and be willing to take the necessary steps.
That's it right there.
Work on it.
Yep.
But denial has never helped anybody accomplish.
Never, and it never will. And we can all think of people in our lives that were in a good relationship, right? And they say something must be getting ready to happen because everything's going smooth. Because we're just not used to that kind of environment, that kind of relationship. So I think, yes, it takes, this is for the grown folks.
Yes.
This is not for the faint of heart. You got to be able to say, okay, girl, you know what? You need some help in this area.
Yes.
Because there's a reason why you respond the way you do in almost every situation.
Yes.
And if it happens in almost every situation, at some point you have to say, okay, if Deacon Andrea told me that, and Reverend Tiffany told me that, and Dr. Hudson told me that, maybe there's some truth to what they're seeing. Maybe there's some truth to what they're identifying, how I show up in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I think we all, and I say this all the time, I think we all need somebody in our lives that loves us enough to tell us the truth. All of us.
Absolutely.
I think you say that because you know, you say tell the truth, and I remember times, you know, you share the truth, and you know, your kids, they're going to get mad at you sometimes. They're going to hear it, they're going to rebel, they're going to do everything and like, you know, 10, 15 years later, they come back and said, you know, and it wasn't my daughter that said this, but my son said it after he had his first child, Reese. He called me up one day. He said, Dad, I just called. I said, what's going on? He said, nothing's going on. I just want to say thank you. I said, thank you for what? Because I see now what you did, what you sacrificed, you know, for the family and things of that nature. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate it. I know I'm seeing now because what they would do is school would pick my pocket. That's why dads are hungry because they don't have no money. They would leave a note on the counter. I would come in, they might be asleep, and they might say, I need X amount of dollars for school tomorrow. Like, I'm going to go to the safe in the house. You know, but somehow, some way, you know, when the time came, we were able, you know, myself and their mom were able to make it work. But it took about 15 some odd years. And then when they had their own family, they started to say, wait a minute. Sometimes you can make things look too easy.
Yeah.
You know, in the middle of your sacrifice.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that something that I share with my clients too is I think that sometimes the parents do too good of a job sheltering their kids from their experiences. And you know, they don't talk about their issues in their marriage, and yes, I think you should not overshare, right? Some things you want to protect your children from, but you do also want to give them enough tools to know what to do and how to navigate challenges. But when you hide your pain and your history so much from them that they don't have, you know, I have so many children in therapy that say, I never see my mom.
Oh wow!
Cry, hurt. She never shows emotion. She don't express herself. She don't talk. But I can tell something's wrong.
Right. So, Reverend Tiffany, what's the balance between sharing and oversharing with the child?
So, good question, right? Like, so I have some parents who overshare, right? For example, sharing their trauma history with someone who's not ready to receive it. Like,
Right.
example, if you are a mom and you've been raped, sharing your wounds with your
Right.
14-year-old is not healthy.
Right. Right.
Now, if you were in a place of healing and you were sharing how to be safe, how to navigate challenges, how to be aware of your body and your environment, that's different.
Yeah.
But
Right.
sharing your pain and
Yeah.
your dysfunction and your wounds and revealing your nakedness to a child who doesn't have, who's going to try and protect you and they can't,
Yeah.
that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
That's
a
a good
lot of
point.
times I'm just going back, we protect our children, but children know a lot more than we give them credit for.
Yes,
my
they
God.
are aware.
Even young babies, because they don't have the language skills, are very insightful to movement and eye movement and how your face is. So those skills don't go away. So our children know things may be going on. And when we talk about sharing and not sharing, the first thing I do is trying to figure out what do they know already? But before I start answering the question, I say, what do you think is happening? So then it gives yourself a guidepost to go by, that you can share, as Reverend T said, but not overshare. So you can acknowledge that, yes, mommy is, not feeling her best today. I'll feel better tomorrow. I just got a lot on my mind, but you don't have to go into, the lights are getting cut off and
Right.
Right.
But part of that is just acknowledging that what they see is actually in the house and present. And that in itself may just be enough, because many times, like, Reverend T said, oh, I'm fine. But no, you're not, because you're slamming stuff on the table.
Right. Look, dinner is always burnt. The fried chicken is always burnt. You scorch the rice and make us eat it. You're not fine.
So I think even just the acknowledgement will just make things feel differently, without oversharing. I laugh because we talked about everything in our house, everything. And I see now both my children say, Mom, I hated it then. I say they hated it. For dinner, we do this thing about, tell me the best part of your day and the worst part of your day, your rose and your thorn. And I remember my son was a smart self. So, okay, what was your best day, the part of the day? Oh, I did X, Y, and what's the thorn of your day? Doing this dumb exercise.
But I bet you they appreciate it as they got older.
Yeah, I didn't do it sometimes. Mom, you forgot to ask what our rose and thorn was today. I'm like, So when we start giving our children the age appropriate and correct communication skills and an outlet to voice their concerns versus voice their emotions in a way that's welcoming and non-judgmental, our children grow up learning with that framework of communication that makes, when they get to these trials, can make it a little easier to get through without, once again, oversharing.
Right.
Something, Deacon LeBou, too, that you mentioned about like how we like kids can recognize the atmosphere change even as babies, right? And I remember someone did a study, and a mom was sitting in front of her baby, and he was playing with a rattle, and she was like, "Oh, good job! Show me, shake, 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 shake." And the baby was just like, so excited. She's like, "Shake, shake, 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 shake." And it was purposely to do like a study on it.
I saw that film.
Did you see it? And then
and
then the next time they recorded her in front of the baby, and the baby was shaking the rattle, and she was like this.
Yeah.
Yep. And the baby was like, and she didn't move.
Nope.
And the baby was like,
wow.
And then started looking down and was like,
got very disorganized.
Yeah, and was like, and then was trying to touch her, and then got very like unsure of himself and what to do, and started crying, and she didn't move. And afterwards she started crying herself, I think, and got emotional. Was like, oh, that was so hard to see. You could see him get very distressed by mood change. And it just is so revealing of how like children attached to their parents, and your messages are so important. And for dads too, I think we talked about it before, like men are kind of trained to like, don't be criers, don't be emotional, and how that impacts their relationship with their children, and especially their daughters. When you are not emotionally aware and you know, how devastating that can be to your relationship with your children if you don't learn how to be emotional and show up. And,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Because fathers are models for their daughters, right?
mhm.
And your daughter, 9 times out of 10, is going to pursue romantic relationships based on the kind of relationship she has with her father,
Healthy or
Mhm.
not.
healthy or not, right?
Mhm.
So I heard a quote one time: the best thing a father can do for their children is love their mother.
Mhm.
Because when when the children see their father, whether you're together or not,
Yeah.
let me say that, right?
Mhm.
When your children see you respecting and honoring and loving their mother, that does something for them.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Dr. Hudson, I'm going to direct this to you since you are the only male on the panel. So, for the fathers that are at a place now where they are full grown adults,
Mhm.
and in retrospect, they have acknowledged, okay, I have not been the best dad. Is it too late for them?
Never too late to make a comeback. You know, it's funny. One of the things that I had to learn to do for both my children, but primarily my daughter also, because, you know, children will ask you straightforward questions.
They will. They
I mean,
don't mince. They do not mince words.
they'll be loaded, chipped in blood. I mean, you know, right at you. And I had to learn to start hearing them instead of listening, because when I was listening, I was always listening enough to respond back what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
So now it's pretty much this tit for tat sort of thing. And I remember there was times that I would hear what she was saying,
Mm.
and I learned sometimes I didn't have to respond at that moment.
Mhm.
I'd say, you know, Alexia, let me think about that. And I didn't know it at the time, but what was happening was when I did respond, she respected it because she knew I wasn't just giving an answer. Like when I was growing up, you might have heard it too. When you were growing up, you said, I got a problem. You ain't got no problems.
Mhm.
I got to
Right.
go to work. I got to do this. But you can't say that now. You know what I'm saying? And the other thing in terms of to men, especially a lot of men we talk to that are incarcerated or coming out, we do a lot of work trying to let them know, you know, you draw the line in the sand. You can't go back and change what happened, even if you never go
Right.
in prison. Whatever you're
Right.
doing, you can't change that. You can only get better. And just like that incident with that young man down in Atlanta, I always had a good take on who, you know, my daughter was dating. I mean, again, she didn't always tell me all the, you know, details. I need to know all the details, but I always told her, I said, the day you get married or the person you meet to marry, I'll know.
Right.
So she, you know, she did a couple of good, you know, good guys and everything. And this one time she said, I met this man and I want to bring him by the church. So now their schedules were crazy, you know, so it works out. They were going to be leaving that day. So I said, we're going to be doing our Sunday school portion. I said, and in between that and the service, she said, we can stop in and you get a chance to meet him. Well, of course, the best laid plans of mice and men. That's the day everybody wanted to ask every question under the sun.
Right.
So
Of
when the
course.
class ended, it was like 5 minutes or something like that. She brought him in. She says, Dad, this is Marcel. When I shook his hand and when they left out, I said, that's her husband.
You knew it.
They've
Okay.
been married now, I think about five or 6 years.
That's good
So,
stuff.
so you can, so it doesn't matter. Don't become a prisoner of your shortcomings. The Lord
Of
knows
your
how many
past.
shortcomings
Mhm.
I've made, but you know, if you learn something from your mistakes and are
Mhm.
willing to be corrected
That's
and
key.
hear the hard things,
Yep.
you know, even as a father, because like you say, we're created as men to be tough and this and that.
Let that guard down, right?
Let
Let
that
that.
guard down.
And
And I started to show. It wasn't until college that I started to tell them when I hang up, I love you.
yep.
Mhm.
And every
That's it.
time I hang up, love you guys, love you.
Yeah.
Now they're saying it back because they
That's
weren't saying it before because I wasn't saying
see.
it.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that's
And
the best way to start with men that might need to make a comeback. Let them see. Again, I said a few times ago, Let them, they know you're steel. Let them see your velvet.
Right.
Mhm.
And Sister Madison, as we end, because Maya needs to use the link, as we end, Sister Ada Madison, my friend, said she was in her 50s when her dad became the dad she yearned for her entire life. And it's never too late for love.
Mhm.
Never too late for love.
Wow.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for tonight. I hope you were blessed by this. Maybe we'll come back and do a part 2 because I feel like we didn't get through 3/4 of what we had planned. So once again, we want to thank you for tuning in. Even if you catch this broadcast after it airs, you can go ahead and share this with somebody that you know, that it may be a help to someone in your family, and then go back and listen again and see if you can identify yourself in anything that we talked about. And of course, know that God can help you through anything.
Amen.
So we are signing off, and we'll see you again the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. for the SoundMind panel.
Sounds good.
You all take care. Thank you for tuning in and have a good night.